So you have it in the future. But other than that, do you have any questions before we start?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
To get to okay, well, that works.
Okay, so just as a refresher, and just so we have it, we're gonna do the circle slash, which means the slash means that it's out, circle means that it's in. We have our key up above. So the scenario says the organizer of a luncheon will select, wait, first off, do you see the game?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so we have the organizer of a luncheon will select exactly 5 foods to be served from among exactly 8 foods. So we have a maximum, well, not necessarily a maximum, but we have a limit. We have to have 5 of these.
Right.
And so we have to select them from 8 foods, 2 desserts, 3 main courses, and 3 side dishes with their variables in each group. And only F, N, and T are hot foods. So let's break it down before we go into the rules. What did you do for a setup?
The way that I had did it, which was probably, I had put like 2D equals and then the F and G, and I kind of just like continued with that as far as like keeping in mind which ones went with which food group.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had for the rules, such as if either P or W.
We're going to hold off on the rules because there's a better way that you can diagram this. So if we think about it from the aspect of a circle slash game where we usually just use the variables, right, as our diagram, we can do that in this one. The difference between this one is we can break them up into groups. So for example, if we have 2 desserts, I'm going to say this is my dessert column, I guess you could say. And so underneath it, we have F and G as our desserts. Then I'm going to kind of move over to the side a little bit and say, this is going to be my main course. So we have N, O, and P. And then our side dishes, we have T, V, and W. And so we can kind of set it up like how we've done circle slash before. So then when we do, let's say N is in and O is out, we can circle them and slash them like we usually do. And they're within our group. So we remember which ones are the main dish, the food group, or the dessert, the side dish, stuff like that.
That makes it a lot better.
Yeah. The other thing within this scenario is we have F, N, and T as our hot foods. What did you do for your hot foods? How did you remember which ones were your hot foods?
Going along with the same thing, I had did like F and T equals hot.
Okay. So another way you could do that to make it kind of with your diagram a little bit, if that makes sense. So it's not like off to the side by itself. Every time I do that, I sometimes forget about that stuff. So the way that I do this is I put an asterisk next to it. Well, that's
okay.
I'm gonna do it on this side. F, N, and T. So then when I see, okay, I'm gonna pick T, it's got an asterisk by it. That means it's a hot food. That way I'm not having to go, okay, I'm going to pick F and G and O and W and V. Do I have my hot food? I got to go and look back at what's my hot food. Whereas when I pick it, I can go, okay, it's got an asterisk next to it. It's a hot food. It's a special variable, basically.
Makes sense.
Let me know when you're ready to move on. I feel like I'm kind of moving fast.
Ready.
Okay. The other part, the last thing within this group or this game is we have to have exactly 5. And I think we've maybe gone over in past class how I do like minimum, maximum, or exact amounts with in and out games. But I'm just going to write off to the side over here, 5 spaces. So when I decide to circle W or T or whatever it may be, I can just plop it in over here and go, okay, W's in there, T's in there. And that way, when I'm going through the questions, it's a lot easier to read it than like, looking at all the circle diagrams and stuff, because we have 8 variables happening on in here. That's a lot of variables. So I'm gonna scoot this over a little bit. So I'm going to put a spot out to the side for my variables. And I do that in all of the games, but when I have a lot of variables like this and a lot of things going on, it's a good reminder to kind of clean it up a little bit. Any questions before we move on? Awesome. Okay, let's go into the first rule, which says at least one dessert, at least one main course, and at least one side dish must be selected. What'd you do for this rule?
Then I have wrote MIN equals 1. So, and I had did like 1D, 1M, 1SD, and 1 HD.
Okay, good. How could you put that into your diagram? If you don't know, that's fine. So what we could do is we can assign one of our spots for it. So if we know that we have to have at least one from each of our groups, we can say, okay, these 3, because we don't really care, like, it's not like dish 1 is served before dish 2 or something. We just have to pick them. So we could say, okay, I'm going to have D as my dessert, 2 as my main course, and S as my third course. So that way, when I've selected an S, I can plop it in my S spot. And when I've selected, let's say I select V and W, one of them's going to go in here. That means my 4 and 5 are just kind of floaters.
Extras.
So then when I get to the point where maybe I have 2 main dishes and 2 side dishes already selected, I know I have to pick either F or G. It helps you kind of keep track of what you've already selected in a cleaner sense. And let me know when you're ready.
Okay, ready.
Okay. Next rule says at least one hot food must be selected. What did you do about this rule?
I think I combined that with when I wrote the minimum shorthand and put it with the rest of them, because I had wrote 1 HD.
Okay, yeah. So this one's a little bit harder to kind of notate because, or I guess put it directly into your diagram, because we can't really assign one of our spots to a hot food. I mean, I guess we could, like we did our groups. The thing that you run into is, let's say you only have one side dish, everything else is a cold food. That one side dish is going to have to be tea if we're doing a hot food. But if I have one, I hope this is making sense. If I have a spot assigned to a hot food, basically it could overlap with my minimum of picking from one of these groups.
Right, because the hot dishes, they fall within several of the different food groups.
Yeah. So my D could also count for one of my hot foods. So I think what's easiest to do is write it to the side in some ways that we have to have one hot food. So I'm just going to kind of write to the side that I have to have F, N, or T at the very least. One of them has to be chosen.
Okay.
All right. Now we're getting down to like the actual rules with the variables. So rule number 3 says if either P or W is selected, both must be selected.
Okay. So I like this bottom part because this bottom part was easy to diagram like before. So I had just like wrote PW and like circled both of them. Mm-hmm. And that was my Q. And then like for GO, circled both of them together. And then for if N is selected, I circled N and then slashed out V.
Yes. The only thing I want you to be careful of with your G and O, I don't want you to think that they both have to be circled or they can't be selected, because we could have G crossed out and O still circled. That could still be a possibility. So I don't want you to think that they have to go together, because they don't. So focusing on that third rule, if either P or W is selected, both must be selected. If you look at your diagram, or the diagram that we have up here, what could we circle? What could we slash? Are we making duplicate worlds? I'm going to get you to talk me through it, because I think
in this case, we would have to make a duplicate world, because right now we don't know anything.
Yeah. This is the only bad part about this game, is it can get time consuming because we have so many things. That didn't really give me a whole lot of room. So go ahead and tell me why we're making the second world. What are we circling? What are we slashing?
Okay. Since we don't know where we stand right now, we had to make that duplicate world. And so in number 1, I guess we could have it to where we go ahead and circle P, which then makes W have to come in as well.
Yeah.
And then in our second world, technically, we don't know anything. We could go ahead and slash P and W, but it also doesn't necessarily go into, well, if they're not, we know if they're either one of them is selected, then both have to come in. So if neither one of them, then they can't be in at all.
Yeah, so we can't pick one and not the other. We're either picking both or we're not selecting both. Those are our two options, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm so glad you got that. Yay. Okay, so basically now I'm going to look at my diagrams and see what I've selected already, and we can put it into the side over here as one of our selections. You don't have to do this at this point. You can do it at any point in the game. You can do it at the end of the game. You can do it as you're going. I'm deciding to do it as we're going for some reason.
I think going will be easier for me.
Yeah. So we've got our minimum main course as our P and our minimum side dish as our W, which is great. Okay, and we haven't selected anything in 2, so we can't really put anything in there. So, all right, next rule says if G is selected, O must be selected. So looking at the first world, what do I have to do?
We'll have to make a duplicate world because we don't know anything about G and O as it stands.
T, B, W. I hope I'm giving myself enough space. I can't remember how many worlds we make from this. Okay, so what am I going to do in the first one?
I guess we can go ahead and select G and then circle O as well.
And what about our second one?
Then we'd have to make a duplicate of number 2.
Oh, sorry, I meant the duplicate of 1. So that third world. We circled G. What do we have to do in the duplicate?
Oh, I did that backwards. Slash out G.
Yeah. Okay. And let's finish out the rule before we put any variables in. Just, I really don't care when you do it, but I'm going to say let's finish out the world. So in the second world, you said we're going to have to make our duplicate, right?
Yes. W. Okay.
Right.
And in the second world, we can select G and select O. And then in the fourth world, take out G.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's go through and put to the side what we have, what we've circled. So within the first world, we got our dessert dish, so we can put in G, and we have an O as our main or our second main dish. In the second world, we've selected our dessert and we've selected our main course, so we're good there. Nothing changed in the third world, right? Yeah, nothing changed in the third world. And nothing changed in the fourth world. However, I want to look at the third world and the fourth world because we can make an inference. What can we infer between world 3 and 4?
So for world 3 and 4, since we do not have G, that means we have to have F.
Yeah! Which is great because that's one of our hot foods. So within those worlds, we can check off we have one of our hot foods. All right, I don't think I'm missing anything else. I think we're good there. All right. Moving on. Last rule. Last rule says if N is selected, V cannot be selected.
Okay. Number 1, we don't have, we don't know anything about N or V, so we have to make a duplicate.
Yep. I did not give myself any room for this. I'll figure it out. And O, P, T, V, W, and we have G, P, W, and O. Okay, tell me what to do in one of my worlds.
Okay, for number 1, we're gonna circle N and slash out V.
Okay.
And then in number 5, we're gonna slash out N and we can bring V in, or no?
We could, but do we have to?
Not necessarily, no.
No, actually, since you're kind of leading us that way, what do we, technically it's not like we have to, but what are we, what do we have to choose between in that fifth world?
We need a hot food.
Yeah. So even if we wanted to bring in N, or sorry, not N, even if we wanted to bring in V, technically we couldn't. It's gonna have to be which variables? Which two
between
variables?
F or T.
Yeah. And then the first world we had selected N, which was our hot food. Okay.
This world is complete.
Yep, we've completed 1 and 5. Okay, let's move on to world number 2. Tell me what to do.
With the N is selected, V cannot be. Okay.
Yeah.
Make a duplicate.
Because we don't know where N is, right?
Right.
So we have F, G, G is selected, N, O is selected, P, T, V, W. And we have G and O. And that's D, M, S. Okay. Tell me what to do.
Okay. We're gonna select N in number 2 and slash out V.
Okay. What about the sixth world?
And then in number 6, we're gonna choose to slash out N.
Perfect. Can you make any What's the word?
Okay.
Deductions. Any deductions between those?
If we slash out N, P. Our side dishes would have to be either T or B.
In the sixth world?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And what about the second world? We can make a deduction within the second world too.
In the second world, our side dish is determined. It's T.
Yeah.
Which fulfills our hot food.
Well, we also have N, so.
But
it does feel it is a hot food, so yeah.
I forgot about that.
Go a step further in world 2, because we can complete that world actually.
So then after that, the only thing that we have left then would be F, another dessert.
And I jumped too quickly on world number 6. You can finish this world as well.
Okay. And then wait. All 3 of them could come in. Well, all 3 of them have to come in.
They have to, because we have to fulfill those spots. So that's great for us because now we don't have to think about whether it's T or V. We know that it has to actually be both. Okay. Goodness, I really did not give myself like any space. Do that. Move this down just a little bit. Oh. Okay. Next world is world number 3.
Okay. But we don't know anything about where N is. So we have to make a duplicate, which turns into number 7.
Okay, tell me what to do.
Okay. In number 3, we're gonna circle N and slash out V. And in number 7, we're gonna slash out N.
Okay. So in number 3, I'm gonna put to the side. We have decided we are picking N. What about my last dish within world number 3?
T has to come in. Wait. No, we have between T and O.
Yeah. Fine. So it's either going to be T or it's going to be O. What about my 7th world?
For our 7th world, okay.
What are we left with?
We have 3 left over, but we have 2 spots.
Do we have to be forced to pick any of them? Have we completed all of our, we have our hot food, we have one from each group. Are we good there?
We have our hot food, we have our dessert, we have our main, and we have, and we have our side.
So that just means that O, T, and B become floaters.
Okay.
So when you get down to like the end of a game and you have done all of your rules and you have floaters, make sure that you check, okay, I have my hot food, I have one from each group, because sometimes it may be like you've seen maybe we have to select T because we don't have a side dish or something like that. So it's kind of like a checklist that you have to go through. Okay. Okay, look at number 4.
Okay.
Last world.
Number 4, we don't know anything about N, so we have to make a duplicate.
Yes, but we don't necessarily have to in this instance, because how many variables do we have left?
Wait a minute. It's already done for us. We just got to bring everything in.
Yeah. So you totally could make that duplicate, which is fine. It's just a little bit more work than you would have had to do. We have N, O, T, and B, which is fine. It's not like it's the end of the world or anything, but sometimes it's nice to take a look at a step back and count how many spots you have left and how many variables you have left, because
that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And save time.
Okay, looking at 4, if we have to have all those variables, and in order for the world to work, we have to make sure that the rule is abided. So does the rule, our N and V rule, does that still...
yeah. That kills it.
Yeah, so it just doesn't exist. And for the sake of space and clarity, I'm just going to erase this.
Okay.
So it's a little bit easier to read all of this.
Okay.
I would just like to say you killed that game. Even though you said you struggled on it, you knew exactly what you were doing. And I mean, yes, the setup is, I think, one of the harder ones, but same process, right?
Oh. Right. And I think I tried to do it, but then I think I just got like overwhelmed, because I did try to like do the same thing that we just did, but it was just, I think I just like, I don't know.
Make it bit by bit. So break it up. Don't try to look at it. I mean, I don't want you to go into each rule and try to look at it big picture, because then it's going to get super overwhelming. If you just focus on each world and kind of block out all the others, it's a lot less overwhelming. So erase things. Okay. And then this is a hot food. That's a hot food. I'm just going in and putting the ones that are hot foods, just in case. I can actually make that a little bit clearer. Do you have any questions on the setup?
Nope.
Okay.
I feel a lot better about it now.
Let's go into the questions then. Oh no, close your eyes. What was this, 65?
Yes.
New test. Three. Okay, there we go. Do you want to go over the list question?
No, that's the one I got right.
Okay, then let's go over 13.
That's the one I got wrong.
Okay, good. We'll go over this one then. Let me know if this is a little hard to read. Kind of hard to squeeze it all on one screen. So it says,
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it says, which one of the following is a pair of foods which the organizer of the luncheon must select at least one?
I don't think I understood the question.
Yes, so this one is written in a really confusing way, so it doesn't shock me. So let's take it bit by bit. So first part, it says, which one of the following is a pair of foods? That's basically saying which one of the answer choices. Because if you look at our answer choices, they're pairs of foods. They're just trying to make it really wordy for you. So if we replace it with which one of the answer choices is that the organizer of the luncheon, basically us who's picking, must select at least one. Does that make it a little clearer?
Okay. At least one of the answer choices that we're given.
Yeah. So, for example, if we selected A as our answer choice, we have to have in all of our worlds either F or T or both. At least one of them has to be selected at all times.
Okay.
So, go ahead and try to give it a go, and we'll go over it.
Okay. At least one of them has to be selected at all times. Okay. A is eliminated because world number 1 has neither one of them.
Yep.
G, O, B can be eliminated because a couple of worlds you can have neither of them.
Yep.
C, N, and T. At least N is selected. Both of them have to be selected at all times, or at least one of them has to be selected at all times.
The question just says at least one. So we could have a world where we don't have T, but we have N, and it would still be a valid world.
Okay. Well, I can't eliminate C then because most of the worlds have at least one of them.
Okay. Go on to D and E.
Okay. D, O and P. O. Yeah, P. O and P. Okay. All right. And then E, V, and W. Well, E can kind of be eliminated right off the bat once you understand the question, because if N is selected, then we know that V will never be inside.
Which is fine. It just would mean that we'd have to have W in and do it in a world where.
That's right. Forgot about that. Yes.
So we could have one of them out, which is fine. It's just at least one of them has to be in.
Right. So then we can't eliminate E either. So then how do I choose my answer?
Let's go over them. So we're between C, D, and E. So looking at C, N, and T, can we have a world where we don't have either of them?
A world where we don't have either of them. Okay. No.
What about this world?
Oh, I completely missed that.
I could select F and then I wouldn't have either N or T. That also happens down here. We could select O and W and not have N or T.
Okay. So then that means he would not have to select that pair then.
Yeah.
Okay, so then V and W then. Going by that same. Wait a minute. W. Oh, world number 2 has neither V or W.
Yeah. So that leaves us with D.
That's how you do that.
And if you look at it, I have O, P, O, P, O, and P, O.
Right.
So in all of my worlds, I'm going to have at least O or P. So a shortcut, or not necessarily a shortcut, but another way you could look at this is, in order for me to eliminate the answer choice, can I make the world happen so they don't happen at all? Where I have neither F or T, I don't have G and O, because it's just that we have to have at least one. So if we can make a world where we don't have any of them, then it can't exist.
Makes sense now.
Any questions on that one?
No, now that I understand how it works.
This one is one of the more harder questions, but I do see it come up often in and out games. In other games, not so much, but in these kinds of games, they're pretty common.
Okay.
Okay. Next one.
14, I got right.
Okay, do you want to skip it then?
Yes.
Okay. 15?
15 and 16, I got wrong.
Over 15 then.
Okay, if F is not selected, then which of the following could be true? All right, so then we look at all the times when G is selected.
Without F, because we could have a world where G and F are selected.
Oh yeah,
So in
world
order
two
for us to, basically, we're looking for worlds where we just don't have F. Where can that happen?
Just look at world 1.
Yep. Where else?
Technically 5, but only when T is in.
Yeah, so that just means that we're going to force T to come in,
Okay.
which we can do. Any other world?
No.
Nope. So we're between those two worlds. Okay? So it says which one of the following could be true?
Okay. A is not true because we have 2 main dishes in world 1.
Yep. And?
Only side dish selected. That's not, B is not true because we have, in world 5, we have 2 side dishes selected.
In world 5.
If T is in.
Yes. The one thing I want to remind you is it's a could be true. So even though it's not happening in one world, it could happen in the other. But in both of these cases, it happens that both worlds don't work out. So in 5, you're right. Tea is not the only side dish. And it also happens in 1 where tea is not the only side dish. So it's important to check both of those worlds because it's
at the same time. Okay. Exactly 2 hot foods are selected. That doesn't happen there. The 2 hot foods does not happen in either of the worlds.
Perfect.
Okay. 3 main courses are selected. It happens there. And 5 doesn't happen in 5, but it doesn't matter because it just has to be true. Okay, so D does not have to be eliminated because it happens in 1.
Okay. What about E?
And then E, side dishes, T, V, and W. Doesn't happen in 1 and does not happen in 5.
Yeah. That leaves us with D as our answer choice, right?
Yes.
Any questions about that one?
No, I feel like I could have got these right if I had my worlds and problem worked out.
Yeah, I think
Except for 13, I probably would have still got that wrong because I didn't understand the question.
yeah, 13 is an odd question. But again, they show up in and out games fairly frequently, so you'll have plenty of time to practice it. But in this case, I think I forgot where I was going, but yeah, the worlds really help out in this game because you only have really 7 worlds to look from. So, is that the last one? Oh, nope, we have one more.
16. I got this wrong too.
Okay.
All right. If T and V are the only side dishes selected, pair of foods of which, each of which, this time both of them have to be selected. right? Okay. TMV. So that happens in 6, and it can happen in 7 if we force TMV in.
Sorry, my pen was in a different color.
Oh, wait. No. It can't happen in 7 because we have W. So it's just 6.
Yeah. So even though you could bring T and V in, they have to be the only ones that are in. So that means that W has to be out.
And we're only looking at one world now. So
it's really nice.
Oh, let me see. A's our answer. F and G, because we don't have P, we don't have F and N, we don't have N and O, and we don't have O and P. So that was really nice.
So easy.
If only I had my world set up.
Yeah, and I would say, I'm recording this, so I can send this to you, but try this one again in a couple of days and see how you do, and rewatch this to maybe remind you where you're making your world or something like that. But I think what really helps attack this game is a proper setup, an easy setup to like kind of look at and stuff, because circle slash is very easy in this game, and it makes it significantly easier than a T chart or something like that. And so if you split it up into groups kind of like this, it's easy to look and go, okay, if T and V are the only side dishes, I can look over here and go, okay, well, that means that W is out because I know W is a side dish. It's in my side dish column. Whereas if I had written them out, I think kind of like you had said when we did set up to the side, it's kind of hard to see that and remember that if they're all just smushed together. It's easier when
right.
up a little bit. Any questions on this game?
No, it all came down to having it set up correctly.
Yeah. So I think if you try it again, set up similar to this or in some way like this, I think you'll have a lot easier time attacking it. And there's another game that is very similar to this where it's an in and out and we're picking from groups. It's like a gemstone game, and I can't remember if I put it on the agenda for a future class, but I kind of want to now. It's a long game. It's a time-consuming game. It's easy because it's just circle slash, but it's time-consuming, which is why I'm kind of turned off by putting it on my calendar because we only have an hour and it gets very long. But I would say if you feel like you're confident in this, I would try like Google gemstone LSAT game or something like that and try to take a whack at that because it's the same thing pretty much.
I definitely want to try this again. Yes. And if depending on how much trouble it gives me, I will know where I stand with questions like this.
Yeah.
Question.
Okay. Well, do you have any lasting questions? Otherwise, we can end class a little bit early.
No, that was it. We covered everything.
Okay. Well, you really killed it. You really know what you're doing. I think your practice with In and Out has paid off because aside from a couple of times, you pretty much led me through that game. So it's really going to pay off, especially when you do an In and Out game, an easier one, and you go, what? That took me 5 minutes to do? Yeah. You know what you're doing. You're doing fantastic. So
thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, I will see you in the future. I'll send you this recording so you have it. But other than that, I'll see you later.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.